The office erupted into applause as the CEO proudly announced another record-breaking quarter. Employees smiled, cameras flashed, and executives congratulated one another. But standing quietly near the back of the boardroom was David Carter, a hardworking black single father who had given 12 years of his life to the company. He had worked weekends, missed birthdays, canceled holidays, and sacrificed everything to provide for his 8-year-old daughter, Mia. That morning he thought he was attending a meeting to discuss a long-overdue promotion. Instead, without warning, the CEO slid a termination letter across the table and coldly said, "Pack your things. Your services are no longer needed." No explanation. No thank you. No opportunity to defend himself. As security escorted David towards the exit carrying nothing but a cardboard box, some employees lowered their heads while others pretended not to notice. Outside the building, Mia waited on a nearby bench after school, smiling because she couldn't wait to show her father the drawing she had made for him. David hugged her tightly, hiding his disappointment behind a reassuring smile. Then, instead of arguing, begging, or threatening anyone, he calmly took out his phone and made a single quiet call. Less than 20 minutes later, black luxury vehicles began pulling into the company's headquarters. Government investigators, corporate lawyers, and major investors walked through the front doors together. Inside the building, executives who had laughed moments earlier suddenly turned pale. Nobody understood what was happening. The CEO stared helplessly through the glass windows as his own board members rushed into emergency meetings. Before sunset, the company that had fired David without warning would lose everything it had spent decades building, and the shocking reason behind it would leave the entire business world speechless. For as long as David Carter could remember, responsibility had shaped every chapter of his life. Raised by a widowed mother who worked 2 jobs, he learned early that dignity came from hard work, honesty, and keeping promises. After graduating with honors in software engineering, David rejected several high-paying overseas offers because he wanted to remain close to his family. Years later, he married his university sweetheart, Olivia, and together they dreamed of building a simple but happy life. Their daughter, Mia, completed their little family. But happiness was tested when Olivia became seriously ill. Despite months of treatment, she passed away, leaving David to raise Mia alone. Overnight, he became both father and mother, learning to braid hair before school, pack lunches, attend parent-teacher meetings, and comfort his daughter whenever she missed her mom. Every decision he made centered on giving Mia a secure future. To support them, David accepted a position at Titan Dynamics, one of the country's largest technology firms. He quickly earned a reputation as the employee everyone relied on. Whenever projects failed, David stayed overnight fixing them. Whenever clients threatened to cancel contracts, David quietly solved the problems without seeking recognition. He trained new employees, mentored struggling colleagues, and even shared credit for his own innovations so the entire team could succeed. Yet while David built the company's reputation, others took credit for his work. The newly appointed CEO, Richard Lawson, cared only about quarterly profits and public recognition. He believed loyal employees were replaceable and often dismissed experienced staff to reduce costs. David repeatedly warned senior management that cutting corners in cybersecurity would expose the company to enormous legal risks, but Richard ignored every recommendation. Instead, he promoted executives who agreed with him and quietly pushed David further away from important meetings. Unknown to Richard, David had personally designed the secure operating system protecting Titan Dynamics from cyber threats. He never claimed ownership because the company had promised to recognize his contribution during the next promotion cycle. That promotion never came. Instead, Richard blamed David whenever deadlines slipped, even though executive decisions had created the problems. Rumors spread that layoffs were coming. Still, David remained focused on supporting Mia and refused to believe loyalty would be rewarded with betrayal. The day everything changed began like any other. David dropped Mia at school, promised to attend her school play that evening, and walked into work carrying homemade muffins she had baked with him the night before. Minutes later, he received an email requesting his presence in the executive boardroom. Several colleagues quietly smiled, convinced he was finally receiving the promotion he deserved. David entered the room wearing his best suit. Instead of congratulations, he found lawyers, security personnel, and Richard waiting beside a termination file. Richard barely looked up before sliding the envelope across the table. Effective immediately, your employment has ended due to restructuring. David calmly asked for an explanation. None was given. His access card was canceled before he even left the room. Security accompanied him to his desk, while shocked coworkers watched in silence. Some wanted to speak, but feared losing their own jobs. David packed a family photograph, a coffee mug Mia had painted, and a notebook filled with ideas that had never been implemented. As he reached the entrance, Richard smugly remarked, "You'll be replaced by Monday." David simply smiled politely and replied, "I truly hope your company is ready for what comes next." Outside, Mia ran towards him carrying a colorful drawing that read, "Best Dad Ever." She noticed the cardboard box, but never asked questions. Instead, she hugged him tightly and whispered, "It's okay, Daddy. We'll figure it out together." Those simple words reminded David that losing a job could never mean losing his purpose. Sitting beside his daughter on a nearby bench, he quietly made a phone call. "Good afternoon," he said calmly. "This is David Carter. I believe it's time to activate the contingency agreement." The person on the other end answered immediately. "We've been waiting for your call." Back inside Titan Dynamics, panic spread through every department. The company's largest investor suddenly suspended funding. Government regulators arrived to investigate multiple compliance concerns David had documented months earlier. The board of directors received evidence proving Richard had ignored repeated warnings about serious legal risks while taking personal credit for David's work. Within an hour, emergency meetings replaced celebration. Richard demanded answers, but nobody could explain why every major investor had suddenly withdrawn support. Then the chairman entered carrying a thick file. He looked directly at Richard and quietly said, "You fired the one person who kept this company standing." Years earlier, when Titan Dynamics had nearly collapsed during a devastating cyber attack, David had personally created a secure recovery system that saved millions of pounds in contracts. Recognizing his extraordinary integrity, the company's original founder had privately appointed David as technical trustee for several critical intellectual property agreements. Those agreements contained a legal safeguard. If David were dismissed without proper review or evidence of misconduct, ownership of specific patented technologies would automatically return to an independent trust rather than remain with the company. Richard had never bothered reading the documents before authorizing the dismissal. The moment David's employment officially ended, Titan Dynamics immediately lost legal rights to the technology powering its most profitable products. Investors knew the consequences instantly. Share prices collapsed. Clients canceled contracts. Regulators launched investigations into executive misconduct. Before sunset, Richard was removed as CEO by the board. The following morning, reporters surrounded the company headquarters hoping to interview David. Instead of celebrating, blaming, or humiliating anyone, David declined every opportunity to attack his former employer. During a short press conference, he simply said, "Companies succeed because of people, not titles. Respect your employees before they become the reason your future changes." His calm dignity earned admiration across the business community. Weeks later, the original founder personally visited David and apologized for everything that had happened. Rather than rebuilding Titan Dynamics under the same leadership, the founder invited David to become chief executive of a newly formed company dedicated to ethical innovation, employee well-being, and community investment. David accepted on one condition: that every former employee unfairly dismissed under Richard's leadership would be offered an opportunity to return with better conditions. Under David's leadership, the new company flourished. Flexible working hours allowed parents to spend time with their children. Employees received mentorship programs instead of fear-based management. Every year, the company funded scholarships for single parents studying technology. David never forgot where he came from or why leadership mattered. Mia often visited the office after school, proudly greeting every employee by name. She reminded everyone that the strongest businesses are built not only on brilliant ideas, but on compassion, fairness, and trust. 5 years later, visitors entering the headquarters of Carter Innovations noticed something unusual displayed in the reception area. It wasn't a trophy, a prestigious business award, or a framed newspaper headline. Instead, inside a simple glass case sat the same worn cardboard box David had carried out of Titan Dynamics on the day he was fired. Beside it rested Mia's childhood drawing that read, "Best Dad Ever." New employees often asked why such ordinary objects stood in the company's entrance. David always smiled before answering. "That box reminds me that losing a job isn't the end of your story. Sometimes it's the beginning of the life you were always meant to build." Every visitor left understanding the lesson that transformed thousands of lives. Titles can be taken away, salaries can disappear, and companies can rise or fall, but integrity, courage, and the love of a family are treasures no one can ever fire away.